Hello everyone, transport enthusiast here, and in this video I am going to be giving you a full and comprehensive review of Tramsim, the latest tram simulator to enter the market in PC simulation and gaming. So just to give you an overview of how this review will go is I will start off with the positives of the simulator, going through all the positive aspects, then I'll go into all of the negative aspects, including a slight rant about the price because I think most people will agree that this is a rather overpriced simulator. And then at the end, I will give you my overview. So for those of you who just want a quick sum up and not in-depth analysis, you can just skip to the timestamp in the description. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing that is a positive about this simulator are the graphics. Now, I know there are a few people that have been complaining the graphics, but to be honest, I think most people, and I am among those people, will agree that the graphics of this simulator are quite good. And what's happened here? And they beat other simulators uh, in graphics terms. It's a lot better than obviously Omsi 2. It's better than Train Simulator 2021. It's, I'd say, even better than Train Simulator World 2, but it is a similar Unreal Engine 4. Well, overall, the graphics are quite good, and I think the reason that here they might look slightly worse off is because they are I'm using a lower end GPU. Okay. The other thing that's quite good about this is the map. The map is very detailed. So when we talk about detail, it's not only the fact that all the buildings, trees, and flora is there, but also the fact that actually all the names and the brand names are there. So for example, if you look up here, we will see that you have VNet, so the V network, and you'll also see other brand names like McDonald's, and you're going to see the, I think it was the Bristol Hotel, for example. And the good thing about this is, I know some people may see that as a negative, but I guess the good thing about that is that it maximizes realism because everything that is in Vienna in real life is how it appears in the game. Because in most simulators, what happens is brand names are removed and everything's left generic, which kind of makes it look less realistic. Now, so I don't know what's happening here. I think there's something to do with the V-Sync. It doesn't like the sharp turns. Now, so I don't know there's something up with this view. It's the first time I've got that glitch, so there you go, there's something else. Now, the other thing that is quite another positive about this is the actual sounds of the tram, which we'll take a look at now, are fairly good. Sounds very realistic. I haven't been on the Flex City myself, but overall, I can't complain about the sounds, and I think most other people will agree that the sounds of the tram are fairly accurate and real to life. People also say that the physics are accurate, but there's a slight aside about that in the sense that one of the issues with the driving physics is that there's no derailment, so actually you can take a turn at 70 kilometers an hour, the top speed of the tram, and there will be absolutely no issue. So again, that kind of makes it slightly less realistic. So, but then again, that is possibly something that will be implemented in the future. Now, one of the other things that we probably should recognize is that, in fairness to the developers, they were very quick to implement the changes to the simulator. So basically, there was a few bugs. So, for example, the humans in game looked terrible at the first release because they had basically their faces were not the correct shape and did not look realistic. But now, if you just take a quick look here, they fixed that very quickly. They added eyeballs to the humans, which was a bit of an odd thing not to do in the first place. And as you can see now, the symmetry and the outline of faces are actually as one would expect them to be in real life. So, in fairness, the developers have been fairly quick to implement bugs. They do keep an eye on the Discord, so the Tramsim Discord, and there they listen to the feedback that the developers get. And the other thing is, obviously, the AI is actually very realistic. So most simulators, the AI isn't as realistic here. All the cars are branded, which again just kind of adds that realism. And then it's got the registration numbers, and you can actually see through the windows. So the AI cars are very realistic. We've got to say that as well. Okay, and that's kind of in a nutshell, basically all the positives of the simulator. Those are kind of all the positive aspects. But unfortunately, as there is with many games, there are also some negative aspects as well. So, what the most first of all, the thing that's a bit annoying about the sim is the lack of customizability with the options, or at least for now. And for that, for example, one of the issues is that one cannot adjust the sound of the game. This is a particular problem for people who record videos, because if you're recording, you generally want to keep the sound at 5% of the total adjustability level. And the other issue is you can't actually change the keybinds, and the keybinds, most people, including myself, find them a bit awkward because they don't really make. There's no real logical structure, at least in my opinion, to them. And you'll see other people might agree with that as well. For example, driving the sim is Q and Z. Now, these are really not keybinds that are used ever in a simulator for driving. Just give me one moment there. Then the other thing is the numpad is all over the place in controls. And what I mean by that is, for instance, on the numpad 7 is the horn, and then the doors are 1 and 2. Let me just move this here. And 3. Then you have the indicators are the division sign, the subtraction sign, and then to knock them off is the multiplication sign. And then to control the doors separately is all random numbers on the keypad. And it just seems a bit messy, and it's just a bit confusing, and there isn't really any overall coherence to it, at least not in my opinion. And I'm not sure if in the future they will allow us to customize that, but it would be certainly a handy feature if they did let us do that, because I think that's definitely something a lot of people would like to see. And then one handy little trick is X is the emergency brake as well. The other thing is, this is not too much of a biggie, but there is no HUD or direction marks telling you which way to go, which kind of makes things a bit confusing, because if you're doing the route for the first time, you might miss the stops because sometimes they're hidden behind trees, and the traffic lights might be a bit more difficult to follow because there are obviously areas where the tracks signal off. Now, there's a few other things there to mention quickly. Is before, I'm not sure if they fixed this yet because I haven't actually had a chance to look at it since the 30th of October. But when you crash into a vehicle, the warning sign says attention in English, but then the actual message is in German, which is obviously a bit of a bug, because if you have it in English, everything should be in English rather than half English, half German. But I'm guessing this is something that's going to be implemented in tomorrow's update, which is Monday, the 2nd of November. Then let's go into some of the more negative and major drawbacks. And one of them is that optimization doesn't really seem to be something that developers really focused on, because the minimum requirements are very overstated, and you'll see other YouTubers and people on the Discord say this as well, because there are people who are running this on below minimum specs, including myself. I have a video out which you can see up there in the card section, where I'm running this with a GTX 1050, and I'll just talk a bit about that and how you can gauge if you can run it, because the minimum requirements, honestly, they just seem to be random arbitrary numbers. There doesn't seem to be any overall reason to them, because a lot of people can run it below the system requirements, and I think that's just kind of an issue because they've kind of locked themselves out of that market. They've kind of just reduced the number of sales they're going to get, because obviously they've made their minimum requirements higher than they actually are. But then it kind of makes it more difficult for people who are at minimum lowest spec machines to know if they can run it, because others can run it because the minimum requirements have been overstated. But then again, is it worth the €36 risk? If that is if someone is getting it from the official Steam site. Of course, people can also get the game from third-party sellers. But yeah, so that I guess that's kind of a two-way perspective, because on the one side you may see it as a positive, as that means you can actually run the game below the minimum requirements, and then it's a guarantee that if you meet the minimum requirements, you should be able to run the game very well. But on the other side, it's a drawback, because basically the minimum requirements don't actually represent anything in reality, because they aren't even an educated guess or an accurate reflection to what they actually are. They're just random numbers. So that is a bit of an issue. And then finally, the biggest thing about this game that's really, I think, it's probably contributed to the most negative reviews, including the one I have given it, and that is the fact that it's just really overpriced. And I know there are people. There's a I'm not sure if it's a minority, but don't think it's the majority. There are some people that say the simulator is worth the price, but I think especially if we compare it to other simulators like Metro Sim 2020, OMSI 2, Fern Bus, Bus Simulator, any of the Bus Simulator franchise series, any of the like games like BMNG, any indie games like sorry, what's that game called? Workers and Resources Soviet Republic, and then Euro Truck Simulator 2. This game is significantly more expensive than any of those games. It's even more expensive than the notoriously extortionate DDG, also known as Dovetail Games, where Train Simulator World and Train Simulator World 2 and Train Simulator 2021 are all cheaper than this, where in theory at least they actually offer a lot more because they offer more routes and more vehicles and therefore more playability from the game. So it's a huge issue, I think, the fact that this game is been set at such a high price. And I think one will be able to see that the price is very high when they actually see that some of the grey market sellers or third party sellers, they have actually sold out of this game because they've been selling the game for half the price. And it just indicates the fact that they have lost. I'm not sure what exactly is the percentage share, but it is probably around at least 10%, possibly all the way up to 35% of potential revenue to third party sellers because they have made the price so high that people are just not willing to pay the full price. And what that means is, from a developer's perspective, they've just lost out on that revenue because if they hadn't been so, I don't want to say greedy, but realistically, I think it is greed charging such a high price considering that it's basically more expensive than the other simulators while offering in theory less. They basically just lost themselves revenue because if they made it €20, most people wouldn't go to the third party seller because €20 is a reasonable price for the sim, and then they actually get it from the official site. So there's none of the potential but very unlikely deactivation of keys, which is again a bit of fear mongering to get people to buy from official sources. But it just means that they've lost themselves that bit of revenue. But at the same time, the other thing is that the other major issue with this is because look, we all know who View App is, and I was under no impression that we were going to get value for money here because View App are the developers from OMSI 1 Vienna and OMSI 2, Vienna 1 and Vienna 2 for OMSI 2, and we all know that they developed the most overpriced and underwhelming add-ons for OMSI 2 because they created two routes that were 30 minutes long, no depot, and they were 20 quid each. And what they even did is, in contrast to Darius, the developer of Hamburg Hafen City, who created two maps with more routes and more buses and then allowed them to be combined together if you own both add-ons. What the developers of Vienna and Vienna 2 did is they separated the maps out, therefore to try and maximize profits by getting people to buy the two separate maps. And it just says greed all over the place because it's from the Vienna add-ons. They just, compared to all the other add-ons from MC2, they offer the least while charging the most. And this is kind of a trend that has been carried on to Tramsim, and actually in the Q&A, it's been said. So in the German Q&A that they carried out on one of the Aerosoft developers channels, this has been translated into English on the Discord. Some of it has. What they said is that some of the updates that View App will be working on in this simulator will be payware. So that could potentially include the tram depot, the new line that they're working with Vienna, or the Munich DLC, which they will also be working for on Tramsim, which I think what they're going to do is they're just going to use all the work they did from Lotus, port it over, and then charge probably 30 quid for it, which again would be quite a high price. So this is an issue because this simulator is by no means cheap, and usually when developers are going to try and go the payware DLC route, what they actually do is they make the base game cheap. Look at Euro Truck Simulator 2, look at City Skylines. All of these games have lots of DLCs that are actually made by the official developers, but the games are cheap. City Skylines is 27 quid, Euro Truck Simulator is 20 quid, and they often go on sale at 75%. Whereas this is extremely expensive, it's 36 quid, and it just doesn't offer anywhere near as much as something like City Skylines or Euro Truck Simulator 2 would do, and they are going on the same business module of payware DLCs. Even Train Simulator World 2021 and all the other games made by DDG, which again they make payware DLCs that are extremely expensive. Even they are cheaper than this, and it is always a concerning sign if one of the most exploitative in the consumer sense and the most extortionate developers that are just known to be money grabbers are actually better value than you. In this case, View App. So again, this is just another, just it's not a good sign, because it's clear they're going down the paywall route, and it's clear that they think that they're going to be able to basically, in a way, extort the customers. Because guys, I seriously think that it's just, if you're going to charge 36 quid for a game and then charge people again for paywall DLCs, considering the game is not actually worth 36 quid, it is really being a money grab, if we're quite frank. And what you'll see is even a lot of YouTubers who have gotten free keys or who have gotten early access, even they cannot recommend the game at this price, at the 36 quid, because it's just not worth 36 quid. And so, unfortunately, even though the simulator may be good in the graphical terms, even though the simulator may be good in the driving terms, the price literally means it deserves a negative review. And it just, that's just what it means. Because if you make something overpriced, then it doesn't matter how good it is, because it's not worth the money. And for that reason, I have to say it's really just it's a shame, because this simulator has so much potential, and no one knows what's happening with the modding tools as well. Because now apparently the talk is that ViewApp are going to censor the modding tools by only allowing certain developers to develop them. Therefore, they can make payroll DLCs and take percentage of other people's hard work, and at the same time not allowing modding community. I'm not sure if this is true or not, but it's been very unclear what's happening with the modding tools. Because first of all, it was that ViewApp will control who has them. Then it was that they're going to make a Steam Workshop and allow everyone to mod them. Now there's talk again that's just going to be controlled. So this is the thing, no one knows what's happening for a game that's meant to be full release. In all honesty, is more like early access, because they said that half these things, like a depot, is going to be implemented in the future, which again is another drawback that hasn't been implemented in first place. Instead it added in challenges, it makes it more of a game than a sim. This again means that what do you call it? This again means that just the game hasn't been completed yet, and just kind of gives it that early access feel. But yet again, they put it at full release price, because I think obviously we can just deduce that they wanted to maximize their profits by basically not having to put it at a lower price for early access. And it's just, this is a problem. The future of this game is not very clear, because if they had gone down the modding tool route where everyone's able to create mods for the game, this is what will make the game go on in the future. Because realistically, if you look at OMSI 2, what has made OMSI 2 survive so many years, despite it being a very problematic game with quite poor graphics, is the fact that it allows the community to develop add-ons. Because most people who buy OMSI 2 do not buy OMSI 2 for the default Berlin Spandau map or for any of the overpriced OMSI 2 add-ons. They buy it for the array of freeware maps, especially real ones that you can drive on and that you can experience. And that is what's made the game so successful. And it just seems that the developers have this, I'm going to say rather, delusion that if by making everything overpriced and following the DDG model, they will be able to make the most profits. And this I just don't think is true in reality. Because I think if they'd gone for a cheaper price, which is a more reasonable price, and which every other developer who works in indie games has gone for, they would have made themselves more money, because they wouldn't have lost a lot of customers to third-party sellers. And then again, if they've gone for the freeware, where they actually allow people to create freeware mods, because look, they might do this, they might not do this, but again, it's not clear. There's talk now that they're not doing that, because apparently in the Q&A they said it's going to be only people who are approved by them, which obviously is a bad sign. But maybe this could change. But I'm just going off on the information that we have at the current moment. And then again, obviously, that is an issue, because then again, when you look at the freeware mods or the potential for the community developed mods, the sim becomes less worthwhile. Because if you're just going to make this with payware add-ons, people are just not going to lose interest. The sim is overpriced as it is, let alone for buying another add-ons. So that's really it in a nutshell. I think that, I don't know, I don't like the way the direction this is going in. I don't think it's going to be the most beneficial to developers, and I think this is extremely overpriced. And it's interesting enough, because actually I posted a review on Steam, and someone someone actually shared it on the Discord and then pinged Airsoft to tell them that it was overpriced. So what I would suggest people do is, if you agree with the fact that this game is overpriced, which I know a fair few people do agree with, I do suggest you go leave my Steam review, in fact any other Steam review that kind of just discusses the fact that the price is not reasonable. Do give it a like, because that way it kind of shows Airsoft and it shows ViewApp that, as customers, you will not you're not going to be happy or even support such extortionate pricing. Because I think if they're going to be making paywall DLCs, they're going to have to realize that if they're going to charge extortionate amounts like 30 quid, they're not going to get the customers. they're just not going to get it because it's just not worth that money, and they need to lower the price of the base game if they think they're going to be able to go the DLC route. And in fact, that's in their own interest because that's how they're going to make the most money. But anyway, guys, that's really it. I can't say that this is worth it at 36 quid. There's only one route. It gets very repetitive, and it's really worth half the price. But that's really it, folks. Thanks for watching. If you did enjoy this, do give it a like. If you do agree with the content of this review, do give it a like. If you have any of your own opinions, do share them down below in the comment section, even in Discord. I'd love to hear what you all guys think. If you want to see more videos of this simulator as well as other simulators, do subscribe to the channel. That's it for now. Until next time.